Just testing the microphone. Hold on a second. I don't know if my microphone's actually picking up. I'm going to double check that in a second, but I just want to quickly turn that down, so hopefully that's a little bit less loud, and then maybe we're a bit louder. Right, we're back. We're good to go. I have a horrible feeling that the entirety of last stream didn't actually include my microphone. That may be correct. I'm gonna double check it whilst we're watching the cars set their initial laps. No one's set a full timed lap just yet. But yeah, I want to go to FP1 actually and check. And yeah, I am probably going to find what I'm fearing, which is no commentary on the entire stream. Okay, so no background and no commentary. Okay, so all of that is not recorded on the final bit, which I'm going to try and fix to make sure that that's not the case. It's quite frustrating. Although it says that it's all fine, so I don't know why it is messing up. Oh well, it seems to be that we're all fine for the minute, so hopefully we're all good for the live stream and we can actually get the comms in. I do apologise if that was not the case, but earlier on and there was no commentary. I didn't know at all. Oh well, it happens, and we make sure that that doesn't happen again. Lovely stuff. Right, sorry for the late whilst we make sure we're all good to go. Just trying to get all the data on the screen. We've got 55 minutes on the clock, 5 minutes into the session right now. Oh dear. Lance Stroll. Damage in the front left of the car, into the wall, on the grass. Still got 4 wheels, but they don't look to be in the right shape apparently. So that's Lance Stroll out of this session already. Home Grand Prix, practice 2 will not go their way. Arguably the best session to get the most accurate running in ready for tomorrow. And that is that. Lance Stroll will not continue. It's only a yellow flag. And now a green, so we're all good to go. We carry on. So hitting the wall on the exit of turn 7. So we saw a lot of cars struggle on entry into turn 6, but then we got to turn 7, they'd usually figured it out. I think we saw George Russell crash. I don't know if it was at that corner or if it was the exit of the chicane after. They had an issue around here a few years ago that caused them to lose out big time. I think maybe even retire from the race. But Lance Stroll is in the pit lane, and that'll be the session potentially done. They might be able to get out for the final stages, especially since never mind. Lance Stroll has been told to stop the car, so stopping the car it is. And they will not be at the back for the rest of the session, unfortunately. So they are parked up at the hairpin. We've got another yellow. And I'm not entirely sure where that is because it's disappeared before I could check. But it is what it is. And we continue with the session. Lando Norris does top the times, finally setting a competitive lap time from earlier on. Wasn't slow, but it wasn't where we would expect. Leclerc, currently in the pit lane still. Not come out just yet. Which is a surprise to me. I thought they would have already had things ready to go at this stage. But no, that's not seeming to be the case. Alright, just hold on for a second as we continue with the session. Ferrari improving. Alrighty, sorry for the delay. We're back again now. George Russell now topping the times. Purple, middle and final sector on the soft tyre, the C6, that people seem to be struggling with. So, still managing to find it. Maybe there weren't so much struggles about the tyres earlier on, and it was more about the grip as the circuit is getting cleaned up. So just a lot of drivers are struggling with the dusty track. It's a street circuit. It's not used too much. It has been used by the F1 Academy. I think maybe the Porsche Supercup if they've come along this weekend as well. So it does have running on it, but they're still struggling to keep the car on the circuit, especially if the rear end, that's where they're losing it. The rear's coming round and just catching them out. So that's something that we've got to keep an eye on. I think it was Oscar Piastri having a moment there at the final chicane. So there has been a few drivers understeering at that point. Verstappen now complaining about bouncing on the rear end. And that was also the same complaint that George Russell had in the early stages, first 15 minutes of FP1. So all drivers having similar issues. It is a street circuit again. You're going to have less grip and more bumps. It's just the way it goes, and they've got to try and counteract that with setup changes. We see Carlos Sainz though going very, very quickly, and they will cross the line as they exit the final hairpin. They've got cars ahead. A slipstream will help from Lawson. Verstappen was going very slowly, so I assume there wouldn't have been a slipstream, but the final chicane is coming up for the Spaniards, and they will go into the braking zone and on the exit and try and keep it at the wall, and they do so, and across the line with DRS once again, Carlos Sainz, and that's going to be P2. So once again, George Russell was improving, and by about half a tenth as well. That final sector's been beaten. Or sorry, no. Carlos Sainz didn't lose the final sector. They didn't have the final purple sector. George Russell took the first purple sector away, and he's now also taken the middle sector away as well by over a tenth of a second. So George Russell currently flying on that soft tyre. Yes, Carlos Sainz has done that medium tyre run, so that's why they're maybe not so quick, but it's still pretty good effort. They have beaten their teammate by a tenth as well. George Russell doesn't PB in the final sector, still quick though, and does manage to make it P1 by 0.4 of a second ahead of the two Williams. Then it's Fernando Alonso in P4. .44 minutes on the clock, 15 have passed. It's George Russell tops the times with a 12.602. Max Verstappen in P2, who's just jumped ahead of Carlos Sainz. Then Isaac Hadjar's just jumped ahead of Alex Albon, followed by Alonso, Norris, Hamilton, Gasly, Tsunoda in P10. Then it's Behrman up to P11. Haas been struggling before, now finding some pace. Antonelli in P12. Then it's Piastri, Ocon, Bortoletto, Lawson, Colapinto, Hulkenberg. And then it's Stroll, who has been taken out of this session after a collision with the wall at turn 7. They sent the car to the hairpin and went to the runoff. No red flag was needed, just a yellow for a period of time. And that was the end of that. They didn't want to get Lance to drive the car all the way back to the pit lane for whatever reason, maybe for further damage or at risk of getting a penalty from the FIA. They didn't want to worry about any more than they needed to with that damage. Charles Leclerc crashed in FP1, hasn't left the pit lane so far, and I'm not entirely sure if they're still doing any fixes or not, but currently the Ferrari driver is in a little bit of a situation because they missed out of effectively 3/4 of FP1, and now it looks like they're going to be missing out a decent chunk of FP2 as well. That's Alex Albon taking another trip around the circuit as they've missed the pit lane. I don't know if they put it into reverse. No, I don't think they did put it into reverse. They just had to go out around again and then into the pit lane. So they missed that one, unfortunately. Been told that FP2 is usually used for longer runs, so we're looking to maybe see some hard tyre running here. But they might do some quick runs as well. But of course, there is a lot of data needed by the teams for the grip, they're saying, so it might be that we get a mix of tyres anyway. So really anything can happen here in FP2, run-wise. I want to look at the times from FP1. We had a 13.193, so we've already destroyed that time from Max Verstappen earlier on. And then FP2 from Canada last time around was it's not Canada, this is Canada. FP2 was a 15.8 from Fernando Alonso. We had a FP1 time of a 24.4. I think that must have been in the rain for practice 1. Practice 3 ended up being a 12.549. So we're almost ahead of the practice 3 times that we had last year. The fastest time of the weekend, though, was an 11.742 in Q2, set by George Russell. Then in Q3 they actually set a slower lap, but it was a 12.0 for pole position. Exactly the same lap time as Max Verstappen, just set first, so classed as P1. Currently that is the man that is in P1. Verstappen almost there, but not quite, as they've been split by Carlos Sainz. So still a little bit of a way to catch the top times, but very almost. beating. And actually, George Russell is... well, actually, no. George Russell and the top 4 effectively have beaten the second fastest time in FP3 last year. So only Lewis Hamilton is the time to beat from FP3. And then we will be going pretty quickly. So this seems to be a circuit that has found some pretty good performance changes or progress in recent times, which is always useful. I do apologise for the delay. We'll be back in a second. Currently we have Colapinto switching to the soft tyre. We've also got Antonelli on a fresh set of softs, as well as Hamilton and Carlos Sainz, all looking to go quickly, but it's George Russell who's on a medium fresh set, and they are going purple in that first sector. So we've got a lot of cars that are going quickly, and they are looking to push the limits. Will we see George Russell get faster than they were before? Or faster than last year, I should say. I want to double check what that time was. It was a 5:49. So looking at the times that we've got right now and looking at the times that George Russell's doing, that shouldn't be a problem. 5:49 is the time. They had a 12.0 for pole position last year. And then here we go. Across the line for George Russell. And it is going to be the 12.123. And almost fast enough for pole position last year. So once again, drivers are finding decent amount of pace, decent amounts of pace on the medium tyre. They've just got a bit more of a stable ground to play with, a bit more confidence in a circuit that's already got a lack of grip. So you really do need to make sure that you keep it together. Colapinto found himself spinning at turn 2 once again. The Argentine driver did it earlier on in FP1 as the car was just on the dirt, very lazily spun, not very clear as to why. So quite unfortunate, and maybe exactly the same thing has just happened. Carlos Sainz P2 at the moment. They're currently 12.7 seconds on the board. We've got Alex Albon with a purple first sector, a green middle, but really slowing down in the final. Just not trying to set a too quick of a lap time, I guess, unless they just made a mistake. It looks like maybe Colapinto lit the rears up in this occasion. I'm not entirely sure. I think they might have lit the rears up this time instead of it just being a lazy spin. So trying to push the limit a little bit more to try and find some extra time, try and find the ability to catch to their teammate. And it ended up going horribly wrong. Unless that Alpine is just a little bit loose on the rear end, that could be another explanation as to why. Not easy to get right, very easy to get wrong. Now looking at the predictions, we've got 6 votes in the chat for who will be the fastest at the Canadian Grand Prix. 33% for McLaren, and then 17 for Mercedes. So I think is that one vote for Mercedes, 2 votes for McLaren, and then the rest for Ferrari. We've got 3 votes for Red Bull. Sorry. So currently expected to see Verstappen go fastest according to the chat here. That's an interesting one. That's very interesting. We could see Max Verstappen go for another victory. Would that be a second victory in a row or a third victory in a row? I'm not entirely sure. I will double check that one right now, and we'll see. It would be 4th victory in a row if they took another victory this time, and their 4th victory in total. They have won here the last few seasons, 22, 23, 24, and now looking to try and do it again in 2025. The joint second most successful, along with Nelson Piquet, also in a very similar household, together with his daughter, I think, or granddaughter, I can't quite remember, Kelly Piquet. And then Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher share 7 victories, so they've still got a long way to go to get to Hamilton and Verstappen's records. Hamilton last winning here in 2019 in controversial style, with Sebastian Vettel losing out after a penalty that was arguably unfair. They won last in 2018, but also in 2013. That was it for them. Ferrari have the most wins around here, 14 wins as a constructor. McLaren 13 wins, Williams 7, Red Bull 5, and Mercedes 4. And then looking at the engine manufacturers, it's Ferrari with 14 wins, it's Mercedes with 10, Renault with 6, and Honda RBPT, Red Bull Powertrains, with 23 and 24, so 2 wins to their name. Those are all the repeat winners, of course. Since 2020 and 2021 were missed out, other than Max Verstappen domination, it was effectively Lewis Hamilton domination, with a little bit of Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo dragged in the middle as well. It was also not held in 2009, which I'm not entirely sure why. I would have to double check that at a later time, if that is to be the case. We will be back in a few moments' time, so I do apologise for the delay. Alrighty, sorry for the delay. Thank you very much for your patience and welcome back to the stream. We're ready to go once again. Lots of cars complaining about traffic. We see again the case. Another F1 weekend, another car being impeded. We did see, I think, Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon be noted in FP1, but nothing was nothing happened. It was no further action called on that one. Now we've got Liam Lawson and Colapinto. Gasly was complaining. Lots of cars all getting in the way of each other. We had Max Verstappen having to dip a wheel into the grass to avoid Lewis Hamilton earlier on as well on the exit of the penultimate chicane before the hairpin. It's all very, very difficult to get a hang of around a street circuit. But they always seem to get it dialed in, ready for qualifying and the race. There's only a few drivers that seem to make mistakes, or teams, I should say, really, to make mistakes, as it's a team effort to stay out the way of other cars. And I only really recall, most recently, any impeding moments from Monaco, and that's what you can expect, really. That was Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in the end. A 3-place grid penalty, I think, was applied for that one in the end. 26 minutes on the clock already, and we have got Lando Norris just improving up to P2 ahead of Antonelli, but it's George Russell who tops the times on that medium tyre, who leaves the pit lane on the same tyre once again. It is currently a Mercedes engine domination right now, with the top few teams doing so, but it's Russell ahead with Norris, Antonelli, Piastri and then Carlos Sainz. Lawson saying that he might just start deliberately blocking people for fun. They seem to be doing it to him, so why can't he do it back? Well, I don't think they're intending on doing it, are they? It's just a little bit unfortunate. They've got to keep their calm and focus on their pace. That is Fernando Alonso going straight at the chicane. Turns 8 and 9 chicane. Very easy to get wrong. Over the grass they go. That was the corner that we saw Yuki Tsunoda go over the grass, just avoid another car narrowly and get all the water to fly up in the air. This time it's a little bit drier, so there's not really any water, it's just dust and grass. No further investigation for Lawson and Colapinto. And that's just a little bit of an update on Charles Leclerc's situation. They will not be taking part in FP2, as that crash that they had actually meant that their survival cell was slightly damaged. So that's the chassis of the car that basically gets affected. If it's slightly cracked, you cannot afford to drive the car. Well, you can, but you got to hope that the FIA don't find out, and you got to hope also that the driver doesn't find out, because they're not going to be happy if they're in a car that's not going to keep them safe if they were to crash. Of course, that means that they are out of that session. It's crucial that you get that right, and they're going to have to try and work very hard to get the job done. The chassis is not an easy thing to make, to mend, or anything. It's not an easy thing to break either, but Charles Leclerc has done the job. Whether he's happy with that or not, that is a different scenario. We will be back in a second. Alrighty. "21 minutes on the clock. Charles Leclerc will not join us. Lance Stroll will not set a time lap. 18 cars to set time laps now to try and improve. We've had some hard tyre running. We've seen mostly medium and soft tyre running though. That's because the circuit seems to be a little bit tricky to drive with the dust, the dirt, the bumps, the lack of grip in general. It will get faster as we continue throughout the weekend. The track will rubber in and we will understand things a little bit more. But other than that, we just have to let things go. Us running a lovely livery this weekend. Could have sworn it wasn't a red Haas logo on the side. I feel like this is a one-off. Maybe I'm wrong and that was their actual livery. If that's the case, then fair play. And we continue. Okay, no, just can confirm. It is their old school livery on the side pods only, celebrating their 200th Grand Prix. So I just wanted to double check that one. That was a little bit of a shock there. I think the first racing in 2015, so their 10th year, or 11th season, sorry, I should say, in Formula 1. 10 years ago. That was Red Bull celebrating their 400th Grand Prix. Just a couple of races ago when Verstappen last won, and I can't remember which win that was. Imola, I think it was. They took victory on their 400th Grand Prix. So got double the experience and a lot more championships as well to their name. 15 minutes on the clock. And we still see George Russell top the times of that 12.123. 123 milliseconds away from last season's pole time. Not the fastest time of the weekend though. That was an 11.7. So still a bit of a way to get to the fastest time of last year. And then we will be finding unknown territory and we'll see these cars go absolutely rapidly throughout the circuit. Not so much grip, but definitely finding abilities to bring it back. As you can see, year on year, around circuits that you don't do too much running at, we seem to gain a lot more compared to circuits where you do a lot of running at, like Spain, and you don't gain as much time. You do gain time, but you don't gain as much time as you would at other circuits. So that's something to stay interested about. With his Carlos Sainz on the medium tyre right now, doing some good running. 12 laps right now on their current tyre. 21 in the first sector, 24 in the middle sector. So a fair bit off the pace, but doing some race runs as expected here in FP2. And that is what you do expect in an FP2 session. Some long runs, but some quick runs. I think we've had our decently quick runs. I'm not sure if we will get more quick runs again. Usually you see the quick runs turn up around 20 minutes to 10 minutes and then everybody calms down. But we had them a little bit earlier on and I think that will be it. They're changing the run plans a little bit because that's what you have to do. That's Max Verstappen going off at the final chicane and I think they have followed. They have followed the race director's instruction of going over the line if you do go off at that part of the circuit, so they shouldn't be noted for anything, but they're complaining about the brakes. That's why they went off. They're saying how they are having more problems compared to what they had in FP1. So again, 2025 and the Red Bull has braking problems. Still manages to go quite quickly though. Isaac Hadjar was asked to turn off the battery deployment, but they ended up miscommunicating what they were doing and they've left it on. So I think Isaac Hadjar might have a little bit of a difficulty with their run plan. They might be able to get that battery charged up before they go again, but they've only made it more difficult for themselves here. 12 minutes on the clock and we've got only 2 cars in the pit lane that are running. Actually, Oscar Piastri leaves the pit lane immediately. Only 1 car in the pit lane that has been running. Other than that, Lance Stroll and Charles Leclerc will not be in this session at all. So it is a very, very busy Montreal circuit. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, named after the legend. Was father to Jacques Villeneuve, the eventual champion. Ten minutes on the clock now. Oscar Piastri, for some reason, has been labelled as stopped, but then gets back onto the screen again. They left the pit lane, and then for some reason it put them as stopped. I think it was maybe because they're doing a practice start, potentially. Didn't get to see it, but that would be my best bet. That would be all I could really call on that one. I will go once again to have a look here before we end the session. The predictions here for the fastest cars. McLaren have now taken the lead, 45% lead. Mercedes at 18%. And it's now Red Bull with 36%. So still fairly high for Red Bull. Of course, mostly assuming for Max Verstappen, without trying to offend any Tsunoda fans there. But McLaren should have the strongest package. But Mercedes may be being underestimated a little bit here. They did get pole here last time around. They were leading for a couple of laps as well until the rain got the better of George Russell, which, as a Brit, I'm sure he's disappointed to say that. As a racing driver, disappointed to say that. As a Formula 1 driver as well. Currently still topping the times here in Canada. Does like this circuit, I'll say that for sure. On the medium tyre though, seems to be the arguably quicker tyre. You've got a lot of cars out on the medium tyre right now. Most of the fastest times have been set on that soft tyre, of course. Albon and Russell, the only drivers setting their fastest times on the medium. Verstappen actually as well. Other than that, it's all soft tyres. Hards are being run right now for both Sauber cars. We've got them soft tyre being run at this moment by Alonso. Everybody else is out on track with that medium tyre. A very busy circuit. And in recent times, I haven't seen too much complaining about any blocking. But I'm sure we'll get some sort of complaint by a driver, and everyone will come back. But we'll see. Time will pass, time will tell. As of now, I do believe this is probably going to be the fastest times that we will have set. Don't take my word for it. Anything can change very quickly. But currently we've got some long running happening. But we can go through the pace at the moment. Less than half a tenth between Lando Norris and George Russell. Antonelli 2.5 tenths away from Lando Norris. Almost 3 tenths away from their teammate. Then it is Alex Albon, very close once again. Alonso close to Albon, incredibly close. Then a tenth away from Alonso is Piastri. Then we've got over half a tenth away from Piastri is Sainz. And then very close to Sainz is Hamilton. Very close to Hamilton is Verstappen. And then almost a tenth away is Lawson, P10 for them. Half a tenth away for Hadjar from his teammate. And then 3/4 of a tenth away from Hadjar is Gasly, the other Frenchman. Then Bortoleto very close. Hulkenberg close. Tsunoda close. A tenth and a half away Behrman from Tsunoda. And then a tenth away is Ocon from his teammate. And then it's, unfortunately, Colapinto 7 tenths away from the next car ahead of him, which is Ocon. And they are 1.7 seconds off the pace relative to that next car that is 1 second off the pace. So a very competitive grid. But Colapinto's not gelling very well with that Alpine. Compared to what we saw at Mercedes, at Williams, sorry, they had a much better time. They were very, very quick, very promising. They seem to have got on with that car a little bit better. We saw that with Nick de Vries as well, going to that Williams having a really good performance and then ending up really not having that great of a time in AlphaTauri in 2023, getting dropped for, I think, 9 races, I think it was. And that was Nick de Vries' Formula 1 career over. So maybe that Williams is just an easy car to drive. I'll tell you what though, a few times we've seen the drivers soar at the wheel and it doesn't look like it's that easy of a car to drive. Maybe they're just dancing it around, but yeah. It's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. They've given a lot of drivers good opportunity in Formula 1, Williams. But when they've gone to other teams, it's not seemed to be the case. And for such a long time, Williams has been a team that has given a chance to a younger driver. Except from 2025, and now things are changing. And you see Williams, who have an experienced lineup, a strong lineup, and their car is definitely improving. Williams is changing everything about them. And they're trying to make sure Alrighty. Less than 4 minutes on the clock now. The session is almost up and we still see some straightforward stuff. We do actually see Behrman on a scrub set of soft tyres that aren't too old. They're coming into the final chicane now and they will start their lap. I'm not entirely sure whether they're going to look to go quickly on it or not, but I'll be honest with you, then probably not going to be able to improve on their current best. Yes, track evolution has been the case, but I don't know how simple it's going to be. Oliver Behrman, 21.3 in the first sector. Not exactly mega slow, but not quick. Track surface has been marked as slippery in sector 12. Which is interesting. Not entirely sure what that's for, but it is there nonetheless. 24.3 for Behrman as they go around the final chicane. And what's their lap time going to be relative to their best? They've done a 13.080. They crossed the line and it's going to be a 16.627. So we're not going to see any improvements. We're seeing a few cars jump onto that soft tyre here as they get ready for their practice sessions, practice start, sorry. That's what they're looking for here. They're going to try and get some sort of tyre that they might be starting the race on, and then have a go. Give it a shot. They generally, I think, try to do as many different tyres as they can, but with only 3 sessions, you do have to make sure that you are careful with it and make your choice wise. We had Bortoletto very close to the back of the Williams. They wanted to go for the move. Yeah, Bortoletto's not happy. They're trying to go for quick laps as the Williams is backing off ahead of them. Then goes for the overtake into the final chicane. And what ends up happening is that the Williams tries to turn into the corner, and they realise that there's a car alongside them. In the meantime, same chicane. George Russell had to back out of it, almost stacked it as well. Because they didn't have control of their car, they're probably not going to be noted for an investigation on that one. Gabriel Bortoletto and I think it must have been Alex Albon could be in a bit of a different story. That's something to look into, of course. But yeah, they were very, very close. I'm not really doing it justice with Alex Albon and Bortoletto. They're effectively racing into the final chicane, and they both ended up going off. So both going off doesn't really look good for anyone. It kind of looked as if Bortoletto had no intention of even making the chicane. I think they did, but they just misjudged it a little bit as they were reacting to the Williams, who was about to turn it into them. They did react in the end, but a little bit later, I'm sure, than they would have hoped. As we now see the clock go and the cars cross the line, we look at the predictions for the Canadian Grand Prix. Who will be fastest? It's 50% to McLaren. That's 6 votes to McLaren. It is then Mercedes on 17% and 33% to Red Bull. Very interesting stuff. I can't wait to see how it will go. No votes for Ferrari. Well, Lewis Hamilton currently the only gunner really out there. Leclerc set some laps earlier on in the first 15 minutes of FP1 before crashing, but that's been it for them. So Ferrari are really going to be on the back foot, and Charles Leclerc is going to have 1 hour and 15 minutes of practice going into qualifying, which will be brutal. Absolutely brutal. Street circuits are really hectic, and they've paid the price. It's easy to get wrong, but it's also Charles Leclerc who is absolutely electric when it comes to street circuits, so I'm sure they will have a good opportunity in qualifying regardless of what they find. That being said, the grip is going to be something different to get used to, and they do have to be careful. The cars have all crossed the line now, and we will go through the timings. It's George Russell with a 12.123, finishing the session very close to his last year's pole position time. It's Lando Norris in P2, then it's Antonelli, Albon, Alonso, Piastri, Sainz, Hamilton, and Verstappen down in P9 with Liam Lawson just ahead. Hadjar follows his teammate closely, then it's Gasly in P12, it's Bortoletto, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda in 15th, Behrman and Ocon following each other in 16th and 17th, then it's Colapinto in 18th, finishing the timed runners. Lance Stroll crashed early on in the session, didn't get a time lap in with P19, and it's Charles Leclerc in P20 at the back, who didn't exit the garage. That is practice 2 done, Friday complete for Formula 1, and we will be back tomorrow for FP3 and for qualifying, the final 2 sessions for the LSI Watchalongs. I cannot wait for qualifying. That's going to be absolutely awesome. We'll see who can really get there. Will Ferrari have a chance at putting in some good lap times in or not with the limited data they will have? I don't know. But McLaren really are slowly stepping it up, although Mercedes still look quick and Red Bull seem to struggle. Colapinto having problems still in that car and running out of time to get things right. Bortoletto once again finding a bit of fire on a few drivers, getting very close to the Williams and not really making any friends out on track. And then it is the 2 Racing Bulls who are hoping for a strong weekend, but it seems to be Lawson who has the better of his teammate this time around, which is a bit of a change so far this season. That's going to be an interesting battle. Williams managed to find some good pace for now at the end of Friday compared to what they had back in Spain. No points for them at all, and 1 DNF in the end there. And it is Alonso who's having some good pace. So Lance Stroll's going to hope that they can do something with their home Grand Prix weekend, or what's left of it, tomorrow and Sunday. Thank you very much once again. We'll see you tomorrow. Don't miss it. Have a good one, and bye-bye.